You ever come home thinking you finally made it back to peace, and then find yourself walking straight into the first chapter of a personal disaster? That was me. Mark Reynolds, 38. Consultant for a logistics firm. Nothing glamorous, but I was good at it. Real good. Spent the last 2 weeks hopping time zones and hotel breakfasts that taste like cardboard. The kind of trip that leaves you physically tired and mentally fried. But hey, clients were happy and the check cleared. That's a win in my book. The plan was simple. Get home, kiss my wife, drop my bag, take a shower long enough to scrub off airport air, then maybe fall asleep halfway through a dumb action movie. But Emily had other plans. She texted me before I even left the airport. "Don't come straight home. Meet me at the house at 6. Trust me. You'll love it." I raised an eyebrow, half smiled. That kind of text from her used to mean something fun. But lately, we'd been a little off. Not fighting, exactly. Just out of sync. Like we were dancing to 2 different rhythms and pretending the music still matched. Still, I figured this was her trying. Anniversary was tomorrow, 7 years. Not a milestone like 10, but enough to make a fuss over. And she always liked doing things big. So, I followed the instructions. Drove slow. Picked up a bottle of decent wine. Even changed into a clean shirt in the gas station bathroom because I figured, what the hell, might as well look like I'm happy to be home. When I pulled into our street, I saw the lights before I saw the house. Every window glowed. The driveway was packed. Cars lined the curb. Our neighbors, God bless them, must have thought we hit the lottery or were hosting a small wedding. And I still didn't get it. I parked a block away, grabbed the wine, and walked up to the house. I could hear music, something upbeat, cheerful. The kind of thing Emily played when she was trying to impress guests. I knocked, just for show. Emily answered. She looked stunning. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing that navy blue dress I bought her 2 birthdays ago. The one she said made her feel dangerous in a good way. "Surprise," she said, grinning like a game show host. "Welcome home, honey." I blinked. "What is all this?" She stepped aside and waved me in. The house was packed. Her parents. My mom. My boss even. Friends from work. Her yoga friends. Cousins I hadn't seen since our wedding. A full-blown catered party was in full swing, and everyone turned to me like I was the guest of honor, which, apparently, I was. There was a banner in the living room that read, "Happy anniversary, Mark and Emily, 7 years strong." I was speechless. In a good way, I thought. Someone handed me a drink. Someone else clapped me on the back. Emily stood by my side, hand on my arm, like we were posing for a magazine. She whispered, "You didn't see this coming, did you?" "No," I chuckled, still trying to process. "I thought we were just getting dinner tomorrow." "Well," she smiled sweetly, "this felt like a better way to celebrate what we've built." People started making speeches, toasts, jokes about marriage and patience, and inside stories from college. I laughed when I was supposed to, nodded, raised my glass. But the whole time, something felt off. Not in a screaming red flags kind of way. More like the kind of off you feel when you walk into a room and forget what you came for. Emily was too composed. Her smile was perfect, but tight. Like a photograph that had been printed too many times. Still, I smiled. Played along. Told myself I was tired, jet-lagged. Told myself she went through all this trouble for me. For us. I didn't know it yet, but this wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. And I was the only one in the room who didn't know how the second act was supposed to go. I wish I could tell you I saw it coming. That there was a little voice in the back of my head whispering, "Get out now!" But the truth is, I stood there, holding a half-empty glass of Cabernet, smiling like a fool, grinning for photos, thanking people for showing up to a party that, in hindsight, might as well have been my funeral. It started with a toast. Her dad, George, stood up first. Big guy. Retired Army. Always talks like he's giving orders, even when he's complimenting your landscaping. To Mark and Emily, he said, raising his glass. 7 years. You've made it farther than most. That's something to be proud of. Everyone clapped. I nodded politely, even though his tone had that usual backhanded edge. Then my boss stood, said something awkward about loyalty, funny now that I think about it, and handed the mic back to Emily. She stepped forward slowly. The music faded. People quieted down. She looked at me. Mark, she said, you know how much I've always believed in honesty. In truth. Okay, I thought. A little dramatic for a toast, but sure. Go on. She held up a manila folder. Thick. Overstuffed. I found something, she said. And I thought, well, it's only right that the people who've supported us all these years hear the truth too. My stomach dipped. She opened the folder. I found messages, Mark. Dozens of them. Between you and someone named T. The room fell dead silent. What? She turned toward the crowd. For those of you who still believe Mark is the perfect husband, I want you to see what I've seen. I printed the messages. Every one I could find. She handed copies to her sister, who began passing them out like we were at a PTA meeting and someone forgot to email the agenda. You said things to her, Emily continued, her voice shaking now. Things you haven't said to me in years. Called her beautiful. Said you wanted to escape with her. People gasped. Someone whispered, Oh my God! I looked around, suddenly dizzy. What the hell is this? I said, my voice cracking halfway through. She tossed the folder onto the table in front of me. Pages spilled out. Texts. Screenshots. Highlighted lines. All with a timestamp. A name. A thread. But here's the thing. I didn't write a single one of them. Not one. I picked up a page. My name was there. My number even. But the words? They weren't mine. This wasn't a mistake. It was fabricated. Someone had gone to ridiculous lengths to frame me. And based on the crowd's reaction, they bought it. Emily, I said slowly, I have no idea where this came from. She laughed, short and bitter. Really? That's your move? Denial? I'm serious. So all these messages, they're fake? Yes. I looked right at her. I don't know who did this, but it wasn't me. Someone cleared their throat. I turned. George was staring at me with that same look he gave me when I dented his boat trailer 2 summers ago. Like I betrayed the whole damn country. My boss had already stepped back. I noticed a couple of our mutual friends whispering near the kitchen. Emily, I said again, quieter this time. Please, let's step outside. Talk. No, she said. I don't need to hear your excuses. I needed everyone to know what kind of man you really are. And just like that, I understood. This wasn't a toast. It was an execution. And I'd just been hanged with a paper noose. But the worst part? As I stood there, in the center of our living room, surrounded by gasps and judgment and champagne that suddenly tasted like ash, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was stunned. Because I had no idea why she'd do this. Not when I'd been the one trying to hold things together. Not when I'd been the one coming home early. Making plans. Booking dinner for tomorrow night. But that was the point, wasn't it? I was the only one playing fair. And everyone else? They were just waiting for the curtain to drop. I didn't say a word. Not because I didn't have anything to say. God knows I had 1,000 things burning in my throat. But because I knew it wouldn't matter. The moment Emily dropped that stack of lies in front of me, the room turned. I could feel it. Like a shift in the air. The warmth drained out. People I'd known for years suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Like I was contagious. Like betrayal was airborne. So I just stood there. One foot still half turned toward the door, hand still clutching the stem of my wine glass, even though the wine had long gone flat. And I realized, there's no winning this moment. Not here. Not now. Not in front of a living room full of people who already made up their minds. Emily didn't even flinch when I started to move. She just watched me, chin raised, like some queen in a courtroom, watching the guilty accept their sentence. And maybe that's exactly what she wanted, public shame. Not closure. Not truth. A scene. So I gave her something else. Nothing. I set the glass down on the table, gently. No drama. No slammed fists or broken plates. Just the soft click of glass against wood. And I walked out. Didn't say her name. Didn't ask for a ride. Didn't look back. I could hear voices behind me as I stepped into the night. Whispers. Confused, hushed ones. Someone said, "He didn't even deny it." And I almost laughed. Like silence is a confession now. My car was still parked half a block away. I walked slow. The kind of slow you do when you're trying not to collapse. The air was cool. Humid. Someone nearby was grilling. Something smoky and sweet. Life went on, apparently. And me? I sat in my car for 10 full minutes before I started the engine. Not crying. Not shaking. Just sitting. You ever have your whole reality flipped upside down in the time it takes to read a sentence? Because that's what it felt like. 1 hour ago, I was coming home to my wife. Now, I didn't even know what she was. And here's the worst part. She looked happy. No, satisfied. Like she'd won. Like she'd been waiting to do this for weeks, maybe months. And now, with everyone watching, she'd pulled it off. Mission accomplished. Let the record show, I didn't storm out. I didn't yell. I didn't plead my case. And maybe to the people in that room, that made me look guilty. But I wasn't walking away in shame. I was walking away because I knew, deep down, something bigger was going on. Because Emily hadn't just accused me. She'd built a case. Printed exhibits. Passed out copies like she was teaching a damn seminar. And that doesn't happen overnight. This wasn't impulsive. It was strategy. Planned. Timed. Executed. She wanted me out of the picture. The only question was, why? As I pulled away from the curb and drove through the quiet streets, I kept thinking about that moment. Her face, the way her voice barely trembled, how she said, truth, like it was a weapon. And I knew this wasn't over. Whatever she started tonight, I'd finish it. But not with shouting. Not with begging. Not on her terms. Because the thing about silence? It's not always surrender. Sometimes, it's the calm before the reckoning. You ever sit on a truth so heavy, it warps the way you breathe? That was me, behind the wheel, heading nowhere in particular. Emily had her performance. Let her have it. But what she, and everyone else, didn't know was that she'd just blown up the wrong guy. Because the funny part? She wasn't the only one planning something. She might have walked into tonight thinking she was 3 moves ahead, but the board was already tilting under her feet. See, the last trip I was on? Yeah, there were client meetings, presentations, hotel breakfasts. But that wasn't the whole story. In between handshakes and late checkout, I met someone else. A guy named Wesley Kane. Private investigator. Ex-cop. Quiet talker with eyes like he'd seen every kind of lie the world had to offer and stopped being surprised a decade ago. I'd reached out to him a month ago. Quietly. Discreetly. Because the thing is, I'd had my suspicions for a while. Little stuff. Emily's schedule started to shift. Book club, nights that ran late. Last-minute business dinners. Random weekend errands that took hours. She'd come home smiling, glowing even, just not in a way that made sense. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't some jealous, paranoid husband trying to control her every move. But something was off. The way she guarded her phone. The way her stories changed when I asked twice. The way she started being overly affectionate after months of being distant, like she was trying to balance a scale only she could see. So yeah, I paid attention. And after one too many red flags, I called Wesley. I didn't even tell my closest friends. Didn't want advice. Didn't want anyone telling me I was imagining things. I just needed proof. And Wesley, he delivered. 2 days before I flew back, we met at a diner just outside Chicago. Sat in the far booth, ordered coffee we didn't drink. He slid a folder across the table like it was nothing. Inside? Photos. Timestamps. GPS logs. Emily. And a guy named Jason. Her old friend from yoga. Apparently, the kind of friend who hugs a little too long in parking lots. The kind who books hotel rooms 2 zip codes over when your husband's out of town. There was even a receipt. Room service for 2. 2 glasses of wine. 1 chocolate mousse. Romantic, huh? Wesley had video, too, grainy, security cam stuff. Nothing graphic. Nothing I could have taken to a courtroom. But enough. Enough to see what I needed to see. So why didn't I confront her? Simple. Because I wasn't going to walk into our anniversary swinging fists full of evidence. I wanted to see how far she'd go. If she'd at least have the decency to tell the truth. To sit me down, look me in the eyes, and say, I've made a mistake. But instead, she flipped the script. Fabricated some affair. Fake text messages. And humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. That wasn't heartbreak. That was strategy. And it told me everything. Emily wasn't scared I'd cheat. She was scared I wouldn't be the villain. Because if she wanted to leave, fine. If she wanted to be with Jason, go ahead. But the moment she realized I'd be walking away clean, she panicked. She needed a story where she was the victim. Where I was the liar. The one who broke the vows. So when the papers came, she'd get sympathy. Not scrutiny. I pulled over on a quiet stretch of road. Turned off the engine. Let the silence wrap around me. And I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, hell it did, but because I wasn't unarmed. She thought she set the rules. She thought I'd roll over. She thought she owned the narrative. But stories don't end in Act 2. And the final chapter? That was mine to write. There's a moment, right after betrayal, right after the shock burns out, when something colder takes its place. Not grief. Not heartbreak. Strategy. I didn't go home that night. I wasn't about to sleep under the same roof where she rehearsed her little theater act. Instead, I checked into a quiet business hotel near the highway. Nothing fancy. Just a place with clean sheets and no memories. Then I opened my laptop. It was time to stop playing defense. First call I made the next morning was to a man named Daniel Kerrigan. Lawyer. Smart, ruthless, not cheap. I'd heard about him from a friend who went through a messy divorce and still sends Daniel a Christmas card every year out of pure gratitude. Daniel, I said after introducing myself, I've got a situation. And I need someone who doesn't flinch. He didn't even hesitate. Tell me everything. So I did. From Emily's public ambush, to the fake texts, to the file Wesley Kane had handed me. I laid it all out. And Daniel, God bless him, started taking notes like a surgeon preparing for an operation. First things first, he said. We build the file. Paper trail. Evidence chain. No emotion, just facts. Over the next 72 hours, I got to work. Wesley sent over the full report. Every timestamped location. Every photo. The receipt from the hotel where Emily and her yoga friend, Jason, had checked in at least 9 separate times over the past year. 9. All of it went into a binder. Chronological. Clear. Undeniable. I also went through our shared cloud storage, where Emily, in a move of pure brilliance, had backed up her phone data without realizing I still had access. I found text threads between her and Jason, barely disguised under the name Gen Y. Classic. Sweet nothings. Inside jokes. Plans for weekends when I was out of town. And then one message that nearly made me drop my coffee. We just need to make him look bad first. After that, it's clean sailing. Clean sailing. She was planning it. Months ago. She didn't just cheat. She strategized her exit. And framed me on the way out. Daniel called it premeditated manipulation for financial gain. I called it betrayal with a bow on top. Because here's what she didn't tell the crowd during her little speech. Emily had been pushing hard for a postnuptial agreement the past few months. Said it was just smart planning. Said it protected both of us. What it really did was shift the way our assets would be divided if the marriage ended under, let's say, unfavorable terms for me. Adultery on her part? That'd kill her claim. Adultery on mine? Jackpot for her. So when she couldn't catch me doing anything wrong, she made it up. Created a lie. Sold it like a pitch. Daniel looked over the binder after I handed it off. He didn't say anything at first. Just flipped through, page by page. Then he smiled. I've seen some cold moves before, he said. But this? She brought champagne to her own crime scene. He filed the initial response that afternoon. Full countersuit. Claiming emotional distress, defamation, malicious intent to deceive the court and community. He also filed a motion to freeze our joint accounts until things were settled. Because while Emily was playing public opinion, I was locking down the legal side. And I have to admit, there was a strange kind of peace in it. Not revenge. Just clarity. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was responding. And every paper filed, every form signed, every email sent, it all brought me one step closer to taking back the narrative. She thought she could lie loud enough to make the truth irrelevant. But she forgot something crucial. Lies echo. But facts? They leave bruises. The first text came the next morning. Hey, can we talk? I stared at it. Watched the little bubble pop up like it meant something. Then I locked the screen and slid the phone back into my pocket. That was the beginning of her unraveling. For someone who delivered her betrayal with a mic in one hand and a folder of fake texts in the other, Emily had a surprisingly short fuse when the silence came back at her. Because here's the thing no one tells you. When you stop playing, the game falls apart. And I had stopped playing. Completely. No calls. No responses. No cryptic posts on social media. Just silence. I didn't block her. That would have been too easy for her to twist. He cut me off. He's hiding something. He's unstable. No. I let the door stay open, just enough for her to scream into the void. And oh, she screamed. It started polite. A few texts. A casual voicemail. I think things got out of hand. We should clear the air. It doesn't have to be messy. Cute, right? Like she hadn't publicly executed my reputation 2 nights earlier. I didn't answer. Then came the shift. 3 days later, the tone changed. Why aren't you responding? You know this doesn't look good for you. People are starting to ask questions. Of course they were. Turns out when you stage a dramatic betrayal party, people tend to keep watching for the sequel. But I gave them nothing. No statements. No denials. Just disappeared from that version of the world completely. And that's when the real fun started, because when you remove yourself from someone's narrative, they lose control of it. Friends started texting me, not to judge, but to ask. My cousin Heather messaged, "Hey, are you okay? Something about that party felt off." A guy from work pulled me aside. Didn't want to say anything at the time, but Emily's story didn't add up. Turns out people don't like being used as props in someone else's spectacle. And Emily? She underestimated how obvious desperation smells once the applause fades. By the end of the week, her posts dried up. The passive-aggressive quotes stopped. The cute selfies with captions like, "Healing vibes only," disappeared. And instead, she started showing up. At the gym. At the cafe near my office. Once, even at the park where I'd started jogging. She never approached. Just hovered. Like a shadow waiting for the sun to acknowledge it. But I didn't flinch. Didn't wave. Didn't nod. I treated her like air, real, but not my concern. That's when the panic really set in. The next voicemail was nearly unhinged. "I don't understand why you're being like this. I thought you loved me. You're not even trying to fix anything. I'm losing people, Mark. Everyone's backing away from me. I made a mistake, okay? But you can't just vanish." But I could. And I did. Because every second I stayed quiet, I took back a piece of myself. And every second she filled with noise, she chipped away at the image she tried so hard to control. Her version of the story started cracking. And people noticed. Turns out, the louder you insist someone's a villain, the more obvious it becomes when they don't behave like one. I didn't lash out. Didn't drag her. Didn't leak anything to friends. But the truth? It was coming. And I didn't have to force it. All I had to do was wait. While Emily's world was quietly caving in on itself, I was unpacking dishes in a one-bedroom apartment 2 cities over, listening to some guy upstairs play guitar badly, and not hating it at all. I didn't run away. I reset. 2 weeks after the birthday ambush, I gave Daniel the green light to handle everything. Power of attorney, legal filings, the whole mess. He said I didn't have to be in town while the process unfolded, so I took that as a personal invitation to vanish, politely. I packed what mattered. Clothes. Tools. My old laptop. The one she once mocked for looking too dusty to be legal. And I drove east. Landed in a quiet corner of Raleigh, North Carolina. Don't ask why. Something about the place just felt honest. Less polished. Fewer people trying to be someone. I needed that. I moved into a modest apartment above a bakery. Nothing fancy, just clean walls, working heat, and a view of the back alley where pigeons held daily turf wars. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The very first morning, I woke up to the smell of fresh bread and coffee from downstairs. I opened my window and just stood there, breathing, listening. No accusations. No tension in the air. No silence filled with suspicion. Just peace. Funny how you don't notice the weight you've been carrying until it's gone. And then there was Caleb, my old college roommate. The guy I hadn't seen in almost a decade. He'd reached out after hearing about the situation, his word, not mine, and offered to grab lunch if I was ever in the area. I called him the day after I arrived. 1 lunch turned into 3. 3 turned into a business plan. He was running a small but promising restoration shop, furniture flipping, light carpentry, some custom orders, and needed help managing logistics and building a real client base. Guess who used to coordinate freight operations for a living? It clicked fast. We filed an LLC within a week. Set up a tiny workspace behind the shop. Started small. Coffee tables, reclaimed wood benches, a few Etsy listings. And for the first time in years, I was building something that didn't have to impress anyone but me. No staged photos for social media. No pretending I loved corporate ladders. Just honest work. Real wood. Sweat that meant something. And every night, I'd come home to my little apartment, toss my jacket on the chair by the door, crack open a beer, and feel alive. Not successful. Not healed. Not even happy, if I'm being real, but alive. Somewhere in the process of being betrayed, humiliated, and erased, I'd forgotten what that felt like. Now I remembered. Meanwhile, Emily? I wasn't checking, but people were still sending the updates. She'd stopped posting completely. The mutual friends? Fewer by the day. Apparently, her story had started to unravel. One friend overheard her contradict herself about when the affair started. Another noticed her evidence had a few too many Photoshop artifacts. And when you combine inconsistencies with desperation, well, the dominoes start tipping. Turns out when you stage a takedown and the accused just walks away quietly, people start asking questions. Turns out silence, real silence, is louder than drama. I didn't celebrate her fall. Didn't gloat. I didn't have time for that. I was sanding down a cherrywood dresser that smelled like history and linseed oil, while my friend argued over what playlist matched our brand voice. That was my life now. Simple. Quiet. Real. And I was just getting started. It had been 2 months. 2 solid, quiet, rebuilding months. The business was picking up. Caleb and I had landed a contract with a local boutique hotel, refurbishing old nightstands into vintage minimalist statement pieces. Don't ask me what that means. We just made them look cool, and people paid. I wasn't checking her social media. Wasn't asking friends. Wasn't wondering what Emily was up to. She was a chapter I'd turned. I thought that meant she'd stay on the page. Then, one Tuesday evening, she showed up. I was coming back from the shop, hands still dusty, hoodie half-zipped, brain drifting toward dinner and a long shower. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, turned the corner. And there she was, standing right outside my door. Emily. Same coat she used to wear when she dragged me to farmers markets. But now, it hung looser. Her hair was tied back in a rush. Face pale. Eyes red. She'd been crying, recently and a lot. She looked at me like she didn't know whether to speak or fall apart. Mark! She breathed out, like saying my name was a kind of relief. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, one hand still gripping the doorknob. I've been trying to find you, she said, voice trembling. I didn't know where else to go. I waited. No invitation. No warmth. Just space. She stepped closer, and for a second I thought she might collapse. I made a mistake, she said. God, Mark, I made so many mistakes. Still, I said nothing. I was scared, she went on, words rushing now. Scared of everything falling apart. Of not being who I thought I was supposed to be. Of losing control. Of losing you. So I tried to flip it. I told myself you'd done something wrong. I needed someone to blame, and I turned you into the villain. Her voice cracked. I was losing myself, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to be honest. I thought if I could control the story, maybe it wouldn't hurt so much. She looked up at me then, desperate. I've been sleeping at my sister's. I lost my job. Most of our friends don't even return my texts anymore. And I get it, I do. I deserve all of it. But I needed to say this. I needed you to know I'm sorry. I could feel her waiting. For something. A nod. A word. A flicker of grace. But I had none of those left for her. Not tonight. So I did what I knew would hurt more than any speech. I looked at her. Just looked. Then I turned the key in the lock, opened my door, and stepped inside. Didn't slam it. Didn't whisper a dramatic line. Just closed it quietly behind me. Left her on the porch. Because sometimes, silence isn't about anger. It's about knowing the conversation isn't yours to carry anymore. She said she didn't know who she was. That was the one part one believed. But the truth is, I wasn't there to help her figure it out anymore. About a week after Emily showed up on my doorstep, the rest of the story started leaking through the cracks. Not because I went digging. Because when someone builds their life on performance, eventually the curtain tears on its own. The first call came from Daniel, my lawyer. Just a heads up, he said casually. Her legal team filed to withdraw. Unpaid fees. No response to correspondence. Classic signs of a sinking ship. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then, she's representing herself now? He chuckled. She's not representing much of anything at this point. The court granted everything we requested. We're almost done. And just like that, the stage lights were shutting off. Turns out Jason, the yoga instructor/homewrecker, bailed weeks ago. Apparently he'd found someone less emotionally complicated, which is a polite way of saying someone whose life hadn't recently detonated. I heard from mutuals, the few who still talked to either of us, that her parents had stopped defending her in conversation. The last time her father was asked about how Emily's doing, he reportedly just sighed and changed the subject. They weren't backing her anymore. Not the lawyer. Not the boyfriend. Not the family who once thought I was the one dragging her down. Ironic. And what did I do in response? Nothing. I didn't gloat. Didn't text her a "told you so." Didn't send screenshots of the legal win. I just lived. I kept working with Caleb. Finished refinishing a beautiful walnut bookshelf that sold for more than we expected. Started running again, longer distances this time. Bought new shoes that didn't remind me of the ones she picked out. I met people. Nothing romantic, just coffee and conversation. Laughed more often. Ate better. Even kept a small plant alive for over a month, which felt like some kind of personal growth. Emily had gambled everything on a lie she thought she could control. And now she was watching it crumble. Alone. And me? I was fine. Not healed, not over it, those are fairy tales. But I'd built something real where her illusion used to live. And in a way, that was the sharpest contrast of all. She once told me years ago that I was too forgiving for my own good. But this wasn't forgiveness. This was release. I didn't need revenge. She'd done that part for me. She'd bet her reputation on being the victim. But when the story unraveled, no one wanted to follow her anymore. She thought she could script it all. And she forgot that real life doesn't stick to the page. So no, I didn't win. I just kept walking, while she stood there holding pieces of a play no one believed in anymore. And sometimes, that's enough. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I walked out of my old life. 6 months since the birthday ambush. Since the speeches, the fake evidence, the champagne in her father's smug hands. Feels like longer. Feels like someone else's memory. Today, I'm sitting on a worn bench at the edge of a little park downtown. It's early spring, sunny, but not warm. The kind of weather where you keep your jacket zipped and your coffee close. Max, my mutt with a crooked ear and a tail that knocks over everything in my apartment, is sitting beside me, panting with his tongue out like the happiest fool alive. Some college kid a few feet away is playing guitar. Not great, Not terrible. Just loud enough to color the moment. I take a sip of coffee and let it all settle. Peace. That's what this is. Not the dramatic kind where angels sing and the sun beams through clouds. Just the simple version. The version you earn. And then, the buzz in my pocket. I pull out my phone. A message from Caleb. Just a screenshot. It's my Instagram, an old photo he took of me standing in the workshop, holding up a table we just finished. The caption was something dumb like, "Sawdust and second chances." Under it, a comment from her. "Emily, sometimes I regret destroying everything we had." That's it. No emojis. No excuses. Just a fragment of truth, maybe. Or guilt dressed up like honesty. I stare at it for a moment. Not long. Just long enough. Then I put my phone face down beside me and let out a breath. Not annoyed. Not angry. Just done. Because for the first time in a very long time, I don't feel the need to answer. Not to defend myself. Not to comfort her. Not even to throw one last punch. That part of my life? It's over. She's a chapter. And I've already turned the page. I look at Max, give him a scratch behind the ear, and toss the last of my coffee into the bin. The guitar kid hits a sour note and laughs at himself. And me? I just smile. Not because everything's perfect, but because, for the first time in a long time, I don't need it to be.